You're tired, and not because you care too much. You weren't listening. You were merging. What the world praised as empathy was often a survival reflex, a nervous system tuned to catch every tremor in another person's weather. That tuning fork inside you once saved you in childhood, but now it rings endlessly, vibrating with the moods of strangers, friends, and partners until your own note disappears. What if your kindness was never simply compassion, but an adaptation, a scar that learned to hear danger before it arrived? Today we walk through that scar into a different landscape, from fusion to boundary, from shadow to self. You are allowed to stop carrying everyone else's storm. If you're watching this now, pause and notice. Where are you in the world? And what time is it where you are? Comment below. I want to see the map of souls gathered here. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next unfolding of this journey on Carl Jung Stories Unveiled. The merging begins innocently. As a child, you sensed tension in the room before voices rose. You felt the silence before an argument exploded. Without words, you became the seismograph of the household, detecting pressure shifts no one else admitted. That wasn't listening. It was survival. To keep yourself safe, you rehearsed every twitch of another person's face, every sigh, every shift in tone, and your nervous system fused with theirs, mistaking vigilance for love. The paradox is cruel. What began as protection became your prison. You learned to feel others so well that you stopped feeling yourself. This is the essence of merging. Boundaries dissolve, the eye blurs, and every emotion in the room crashes against you as if it were your own tide. Listening would mean hearing with distinction, with separation. Merging means drowning. Imagine yourself in conversation. A friend speaks of despair. You don't just hear the words, you become the despair. Their ache moves into your chest, your shoulders sag, and you carry it home like luggage that was never yours. That is why you're drained. Your empathy is not compassion, but absorption. Jung would call this an archetypal script. You are not just a good listener. You embody the healer, and with it, the shadow of the martyr. This is why you collapse. The martyr archetype tells you that to heal is to lose yourself for others, to spill until you are empty. But what the world calls noble sacrifice is often slow erasure. And yet, here is the hope. The very mechanism that once fused you to others can be reclaimed. To recognize merging is already to loosen its grip. You can learn to listen without drowning, to witness without swallowing, to stand as both mirror and lantern. The story we are building together is not about denying your sensitivity. It is about sanctifying it. You cannot amputate your gift, but you can refine it. You can practice sacred selfishness, where your energy budget is treated as holy, where your no is as compassionate as your yes. Every myth begins with disorientation, and this is yours. You feel drained because you mistook merging for empathy. The task ahead is to unbraid those cords and rediscover where you end and another begins. It will be painful to admit how long you have played this role, how much of your identity has been built on hyper-attunement. But the honesty itself is the first alchemy. To name the wound is to begin to heal it. As we move forward, hold this truth. You are not weak for being exhausted. You are exhausted because you have been playing Atlas, carrying emotions not meant for you. Set the globe down for a moment. Feel your own weight. Notice that you are still here, intact. In the next movement of our story, we'll meet the archetype hiding inside this exhaustion, the healer who easily becomes the martyr. Understanding this dual role is the key to seeing why your energy depletes so quickly, and why the very impulse to heal often demands that you bleed. The healer lives inside you, but so does the martyr. This is the dual mask you inherited, a paradox you keep replaying. On one side, the healer archetype rises with luminous intent. You sense the wounds of others, sometimes before they speak them, and feel compelled to mend what is torn. On the other, the martyr crouches in the shadow, whispering that healing requires sacrifice, that the price of easing another's pain is your own depletion. And so, in daily life, you pour until your own cup runs dry. Think of the moments when friends or colleagues describe you as so understanding or always there. Their words warm you, but underneath you feel the weight of invisible exhaustion. You don't just help, you absorb. You don't just comfort, you bleed. This is not weakness. It is archetype at work. Archetypes are not characters you choose to play. They are psychic currents pulling you along, ancient stories living through you. Jung spoke often of the archetypal dimension, the primordial images that guide humanity across centuries. The healer is one of these, a figure who bridges the human and the divine, who channels life force into broken places. But its shadow twin, the martyr, insists that healing must come through your suffering. The martyr whispers, "If they are to stand, you must fall. If they are to breathe, you must suffocate." And because you learned young that others' moods determined your safety, you listened to that whisper. To keep the peace, you sacrificed your energy. To hold the family together, you sacrificed your clarity. To be loved, you sacrificed your boundaries. That pattern repeats into adulthood. Every time you ignore your exhaustion to be there for someone else, you rehearse the martyr's script. But here's the hidden truth. Healing doesn't require your collapse. What the world calls noble endurance is often self-erasure. The archetype of the wounded healer offers a different path. Unlike the martyr, the wounded healer doesn't glorify suffering, it transforms it. The wound becomes a doorway, not a death sentence. Pause and imagine this. Your own scars glowing faintly, not as signs of depletion, but as lanterns lighting another's path. That's the alchemy. Your pain as wisdom, not your pain as fuel. The healer within you doesn't demand that you empty yourself for others. It invites you to hold your wound tenderly, and through that tenderness, guide others without vanishing. Why does the martyr archetype seduce so many empaths? Because sacrifice feels holy. You sense divinity in giving, and so you confuse self-loss with sanctity. But divinity doesn't require you to collapse. It requires you to shine steadily, like a flame protected from the wind by glass. A candle that dies in the draft helps no one. A candle shielded becomes a beacon. Look at your own history. Recall how often you've stayed late to soothe a coworker, listened past midnight to a friend's spirals, carried guilt for someone else's decisions. Did you notice the quiet resentment that followed? The hollow ache the next day? That is the martyr's tax. The archetype feeds on your energy until you mistake emptiness for devotion. But here lies the turning. You can step out of the script. Archetypes are powerful, but they are not prisons. When you notice the martyr rising, you can pause. You can ask, am I healing or am I erasing myself? That single question redraws the stage. The martyr thrives in unconsciousness. The healer awakens in awareness. And when awareness grows, you begin to see that healing others doesn't mean abandoning yourself. It means carrying your medicine without spilling it all. It means sitting beside someone in pain, not by taking their wound into your body, but by letting your presence remind them they can survive it. You don't need to bleed with them to love them. The shift begins small. You might leave a gathering 5 minutes earlier than usual, honoring your fatigue. You might let a message sit unread until your own energy stabilizes. You might say, "I can listen, but only for a little while." These small acts look ordinary, but they are revolutionary. They are the death of the martyr's grip. So as we close this section, remember, the healer and martyr are twins, but you choose which one speaks. Healing doesn't demand self-destruction. It demands presence, discernment, and the courage to keep your own flame alive. And as we turn forward, we must descend deeper into the hidden chambers of this merging, the way you not only heal, but also absorb the shadow of others. That unconscious intake of pain is the next danger, and only by seeing it clearly can you stop drowning in what was never yours. You didn't just carry their moods, you carried their shadows. This is the most invisible wound of the empath, absorbing what others disown, swallowing pain that isn't yours until it festers like a foreign organ inside your psyche. Jung called it the shadow, the repressed, unwanted parts of the self that get pushed underground, yet never die. For most people, shadows leak out in projection, anger, or denial. But for you, they don't just leak out. You inhale them. Picture a friend unloading their rage. They may never admit to being cruel, but you feel the cruelty seep into your body. Or imagine a partner who hides sadness under sarcasm. You catch the sadness and wear it like a cloak, even when they refuse to name it. Over time, these shadow fragments accumulate in you, layering until you can't distinguish between your sorrow and theirs. That confusion is why you wake up heavy, even after nothing happened in your own life. Shadow absorption feels like empathy, but it is not compassion. It is psychic contagion. And it leaves you drained because your inner system becomes a crowded house of ghosts. Their repressed anger bangs on your walls at midnight. Their shame lurks in your basement. Their despair breathes through your lungs. You are not broken for feeling this. You are tuned too finely, an instrument playing notes no one else admits are in the room. But here is the paradox. What the world calls sensitivity is, in truth, a survival tactic rehearsed since childhood. When the adults in your life disowned their shadows, you carried them, hoping to keep the household from shattering. You became the family vault for what others couldn't face. That vault is still inside you, opening automatically whenever someone nearby pushes their darkness away. The cost is exhaustion. Absorbing shadows is like trying to drink poison for another person, believing it will purify them. But it doesn't. They remain untouched. You grow sick. Jung warned that the unconscious doesn't vanish when ignored. It waits. And when you take it on, you're not dissolving it. You're doubling it. So how do you stop being a sponge for shadows? The first step is recognition. Notice the weight that drops into you when someone vents, the sudden shift in your mood that doesn't match your day. Ask yourself, is this mine? That simple question becomes a filter, a boundary of discernment. What is yours can be felt and processed. What is theirs can be returned, gently but firmly, to its rightful owner. You may fear that refusing to carry their shadow is unkind. But consider this. When you absorb, you deny them the chance to face their own darkness. You become the hiding place, and they remain asleep. True compassion doesn't mean taking their pain into yourself. It means holding a mirror so they can see it. This is where sacred selfishness begins. To say, I see your anger, but I won't wear it. To say, I feel your despair, but I will not drown in it. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. Without it, you are lost under a pile of borrowed ghosts. With it, you stand present, a witness rather than a victim. Dreams often warn empaths about shadow absorption. You may dream of drowning in oceans that aren't yours, or of carrying suitcases that never open but grow heavier. These are symbols from your unconscious, reminding you that you've been living as a vessel, not a self. Pay attention to those dreams. They are your psyche's protest. They want you to stop being a container for what is not yours. But naming the shadow isn't enough. You must also integrate your own. Because part of the reason you absorb others' darkness is that you haven't yet faced your own. When you avoid your own anger, you feel theirs more strongly. When you deny your own grief, you carry theirs compulsively. Integration begins with honesty, letting yourself feel the emotions you've long exiled. It is not an easy practice. To sit with your own anger feels dangerous at first. To acknowledge envy or bitterness feels like betrayal of your identity as the kind one. But this honesty is the doorway out of absorption. Once you accept that you too have a shadow, you no longer need to play host to everyone else's. So let this sink in. The empath who absorbs shadows is not cursed, but untrained. You are learning that empathy does not mean ownership. You can notice without swallowing. You can witness without merging. And in that choice lies freedom. As we leave this section, remember the image of the crowded house of ghosts. Each one you carried was never yours to keep. Begin unlocking those doors and letting them go. Because in the next stage of our journey, the psyche itself offers you guidance, not just through daily awareness, but through the deep language of symbols and dreams. There, your unconscious will show you both the danger of merging and the path toward grounding. Dreams have always been the secret script of the empath. When your waking life feels blurred by other people's emotions, your unconscious stages plays at night to tell you what you couldn't see by daylight. Jung called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. And for empaths, that road is paved with symbols of drowning, trees, storms, and shelters. Each one is a message, a mirror of how you are merging, or how you might learn to stand. Think of the dream where you are drowning in endless water. The tide is not made of your own grief, but of countless borrowed sorrows pressing you under. This is the psyche showing you what it feels like to absorb too much. It's not punishment. It's a picture, a warning. Your body knows you're sinking, and your dream paints it in salt water. The act of remembering such dreams is already the first step of awakening. You can name the overwhelm instead of mistaking it for your identity. Other empaths dream of being rooted like trees, their feet tangled deep in the soil. These dreams are not cages, they are gifts. The tree is the symbol of grounding, of stability amidst storm. Your unconscious is whispering. You long for anchors. You don't have to be swept into every emotional flood. You can dig into earth, into practices that tether you to yourself. Still others see houses in dreams, rooms collapsing, walls flooded, or doors endlessly opening. The house is the psyche, and when your rooms are crowded with others' shadows, the dream house cracks. To repair it, you don't need to board up every door. You need to decide which rooms are yours and which guests must leave. These symbols are not random. They are compensations. Dreams compensate for what your waking mind refuses to admit. By day you say, "I'm fine." By night, the ocean rises to show you you're not. By day you say, "I don't need boundaries." By night, your dream shows walls buckling. The unconscious is your most honest companion. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't gaslight you. It doesn't let you hide. This is where your empathic gift can shift from curse to compass. Instead of only feeling others, you can begin listening to your own inner images. The same sensitivity that picks up another's sigh can also pick up your soul's whispers if you turn inward. Dreams ask you to redirect the radar, to sense your own depths as vividly as you sense others. The challenge is interpretation without overcomplication. Jungian symbols are not rigid codes. They are living metaphors. For one empath, a storm may symbolize external chaos. For another, it might be repressed anger. The meaning emerges when you connect the dream to your waking patterns. Did you merge too much this week? Did you avoid speaking your truth? Your dream answers you in image when you won't answer yourself in words. To work with these symbols, try this. When you wake, write down the image in one line. I was drowning. I was a tree. The house collapsed. Then ask, what does this picture remind me of in my real life? Don't reach for books first. Reach for your gut. Your unconscious uses your language, your metaphors, not someone else's. Over time, you'll notice a rhythm. Dreams that scream of merging when you've absorbed too much. Dreams that whisper of grounding when you crave stability. Dreams that warn of burnout when you ignore your limits. They're not abstract. They're precise. They are your psyche fighting for your survival, the way your body coughs to clear lungs. There is also a spiritual angle. Many empaths report synchronicities paired with their dreams. You dream of water, then all day you encounter flood metaphors, rainstorms, or films about drowning. This is not coincidence alone. It is the psyche extending its imagery into your waking life, insisting you pay attention. Jung called this meaningful coincidence synchronicity. For the empath, synchronicity is often a louder dream, symbols walking out of sleep into daylight. So the invitation is clear. Treat your dreams as allies, not puzzles. They are not trying to trick you. They are trying to wake you. Each dream is a mirror held up to your merging, your boundaries, your hidden longing for rootedness. The empath who listens to dreams begins to reclaim selfhood. Because finally, you are listening to your unconscious. Not everyone else's pain, but the dream is only the messenger. The task is to act on its message. If your dream shows you drowning, ask, where can I pull back today? If it shows you rooted, ask, how can I ground myself now? When you act, the dream shifts. The unconscious doesn't repeat endlessly when it feels heard. It evolves. As you lean into these symbols, remember this. You were never meant to be a sponge forever. You were meant to be a vessel for your own soul. And your dreams will never stop pointing you back toward that truth. As we move to the next stage of this story, we will step from symbols into practices, into the tangible discipline of boundaries. For what good is knowing you are drowning if you never learn to swim to shore? The dream warns. The boundary rescues, and it is to this sanctuary of self-preservation that we now turn. A dream can show you drowning, but only boundaries keep you from stepping back into the flood. Boundaries are not walls of cold stone. They are living thresholds, doors you learn to open and close with intention. For the empath, boundaries are not optional. They are survival. Without them, every interaction becomes an unconscious merging, every relationship a slow erosion. With them, your gift remains intact, but your energy is preserved. You've been taught that saying no is selfish, that turning away from another's pain is abandonment. But what if the opposite is true? What if the refusal to set limits is the real betrayal? Betrayal of yourself, and ultimately betrayal of the person who never learns to face their own shadows because you carried them for them. Boundaries are not rejection. They are sacred selfishness. The recognition that your energy budget is holy. Imagine this. You have a candle. Each time someone comes near, they lean in to light their own flame. Without boundaries, they dip their wick so close that the draft extinguishes yours. Now no one has light. With boundaries, you place a lantern glass around your flame. Others still light their candles, but yours burns steady. That glass is the boundary. It protects. It doesn't isolate. Sacred selfishness means treating your energy the way monks treat their rituals, with reverence, with precision. You cannot pour endlessly. You must refill. And the act of refilling is not indulgence, but responsibility. Think of the airline instruction. Put on your own oxygen mask first. Without it, your attempt to help collapses both of you. Boundaries are your oxygen mask. How do you build them? Start simple. Notice the bodily signals of merging, the sudden slump of fatigue mid-conversation, the breath that shortens when another unloads, the wave of heaviness that makes no sense in your own story. These are alarms. Instead of ignoring them, honor them. You can say, "I hear you, but I need to pause." You can say, "I care, and I also need rest." The exact words matter less than the posture. You honoring your edges. At first, boundaries feel like rebellion. You may hear inner voices calling you cold or unkind. That is the martyr protesting, afraid of losing its role. But rebellion is necessary. Sacred selfishness often begins as defiance before it matures into balance. You are not rejecting connection. You are preserving the vessel that makes connection possible. Consider how boundaries shift your empathic gift from absorption to presence. Without them, you drown with the person in pain. With them, you become the shoreline, the stable edge where their tide can break without washing you away. This is the paradox. By stepping back, you actually offer steadier support. The drowning person doesn't need you to sink beside them. They need you anchored on shore, extending a hand. Boundaries also restore dignity. When you refuse to carry what isn't yours, you allow the other to confront their own shadow. This is love, though it looks less soft. It is not about rescuing, it is about respecting. To carry another's pain without consent is theft of their growth. To return it gently is respect for their soul. And boundaries are not only external, they are internal. You must learn the inner stop. The moment when self-talk turns harsh, when guilt scripts replay, when the inner critic piles weight on your shoulders. Boundaries there mean saying, "No, this voice is not truth." They mean choosing which inner dialogues to host, which to silence. Internal boundaries protect you from becoming your own abuser. Let's return to the archetypal frame. The empath without boundaries is ruled by the martyr. The empath with boundaries embodies the healer. Not by bleeding, but by witnessing, by steadying, by shining. Sacred selfishness is the sword of the healer, the tool that cuts through illusions of self-sacrifice. This sanctuary of boundaries is not built in a day. It is practiced moment by moment, each time you resist the urge to overextend. And every time you honor your edges, your body relaxes, your soul exhales. You begin to feel something empaths often forget is possible: vitality. The drained emptiness lifts. In its place comes clarity, energy, even joy. So remember, a boundary is not a betrayal. It is a devotion to yourself, to truth, to the sacredness of connection that doesn't collapse you. When you set one, you are not turning away from empathy. You are ensuring empathy stays real, not distorted into absorption. As we move ahead, the story widens. Boundaries don't only protect you, they prepare you for deeper integration. The next movement leads us into the alchemical furnace, where your exhaustion, your merging, your shadows are not wasted, but transformed into wisdom. We now step into the ancient stages of alchemy, where the empath's survival scars are transmuted into gold. Alchemy was never just about turning lead into gold. It was about the transformation of the soul, refining chaos into clarity, wounds into wisdom, shadows into light. For the empath, the entire journey of exhaustion, merging, and recovery mirrors these ancient stages. Your drained body is not simply a sign of failure. It is the nigredo, the blackening, the first alchemical phase where the old form dissolves so a new one can be born. In nigredo, everything feels heavy, dark, and chaotic. This is the burnout stage when you've carried too much of others' pain, when your body aches, your mind fogs, and your spirit whispers, "Enough." You think you are broken, but you are not. You are dissolving an old identity, the one that believed you had to absorb everything to be safe and loved. From this dissolution comes albedo, the whitening. Here you begin to see glimmers of clarity. You notice for the first time what emotions belong to you and what belongs to others. You begin cleansing your psyche of borrowed sorrows. Practices like journaling, meditation, and even the simple act of asking, "Is this mine?" become the washing waters that rinse away confusion. Albedo is a stage of purification, of self-awareness dawning. Next arrives synchronicities, the yellowing. This stage is the warming of the soul, the integration of opposites within you. Jung would say this is where the anima and animus begin to converse. The nurturing side learns to balance with the boundary-setting side. Care without firmness collapses. Firmness without care cuts. When both are present, your empathy becomes whole. Synchronicities is the golden light of inner harmony, where you sense your gifts no longer drain you but sustain you. Finally comes rubedo, the reddening, the consummation of the process. Here the empath reaches wholeness, not by rejecting sensitivity, but by embodying it with sovereignty. In rubedo, you no longer bleed to heal, you radiate. Your pain has become wisdom. Your boundaries have become strength. Your empathy has become compass. You stand as philosopher's stone, not because you control others, but because you have transmuted suffering into compassion without self-loss. This alchemical path is not metaphor alone. It plays out in your life. Nigredo feels like sleepless nights and endless tears. Albedo feels like the relief of the first clear breath. Synchronicities feels like speaking a boundary without guilt. Rubedo feels like walking into a room full of emotion and remaining yourself, steady, whole, luminous. Why frame the empath's struggle as alchemy? Because it honors your pain as purposeful. It says the draining wasn't meaningless. Every collapse was a crucible. Every merging was raw material. Every shadow you carried can, with awareness, become gold. This reframing is essential. Instead of pathologizing your gift, you revere it as the very furnace of transformation. Alchemy also reminds you that change is cyclical. You will return to nigredo again and again, moments of collapse, of overload. But now you know it's not the end. It's the beginning of another refinement. You will cleanse, balance, and redden once more. Each cycle brings deeper wisdom, greater resilience. In this furnace, the martyr archetype melts away. What hardens instead is the wounded healer, no longer bleeding unconsciously, but consciously holding their scar as a lantern. You become capable of guiding others not by taking their pain, but by showing them how to transmute it. Your wound is no longer a sinkhole, it is a philosopher's stone. And so, when you feel drained, remember this: you are not failing. You are in a stage. Name it: nigredo, albedo, synchronicities, rubedo, and you take back authorship. The empath's life is not a collapse. It is an alchemical laboratory. Your sensitivity is the raw ore, your boundaries the furnace, your soul the gold. As we close this section, hold the image of your exhaustion as a dark crucible, already glowing at the edges with potential. Because in the next stage, we step into the greater myth that gives this process meaning: individuation, the lifelong work of becoming whole, authentic, and sovereign. There, we will see how your empathic gift is not a burden to escape, but a path toward your greater purpose. Individuation is Jung's word for the great work of becoming yourself. A self not fragmented by masks or swallowed by others, but whole, balanced, and authentic. For the empath, individuation is especially urgent because your very identity has been blurred by constant merging. The path forward is not about rejecting empathy, but integrating it into a solid, sovereign self. It begins with the recognition that you are both individual and connected, both I and we. Too much fusion, and you dissolve. Too much isolation, and you wither. Individuation teaches you to hold both: deep resonance with others and unwavering presence with yourself. This is the fine line every empath must walk. Your inner guide emerges here. In dreams or intuition, you may encounter a figure of wisdom, a mentor, ancestor, or archetypal companion. This guide is the voice that says, "Stand firm, this feeling is not yours," or "Speak now, your truth matters." Cultivating a relationship with this inner figure helps you navigate the labyrinth of emotions without losing your own thread. Creative imagination also blossoms at this stage. For empaths, imagination is not escape, it is integration. When you write, paint, or play music, you give form to the swirling inner world. You translate absorption into expression, and in doing so, you release what once drowned you. Creative practice becomes the bridge between your unconscious and conscious self, stitching your wholeness together. Nature, too, becomes ally. The empath who feels everything can find balance in the cycles of the earth. The turning seasons, the rhythm of waves, the constancy of stars, all remind you that change is natural and grounding is always available. To walk among trees is to remember your own roots. To sit by water is to release borrowed tides. Nature is the mirror of individuation. Diverse, interwoven, yet each element whole. Vulnerability and strength meet here as well. To be empathic is to be open, and openness feels risky. But individuation shows that vulnerability is not weakness when paired with discernment. You can open without collapsing. You can feel without fusing. Strength is not hard armor, it is rootedness. The ability to bend in the storm without breaking. Authenticity then follows. Individuation strips away the masks. The people pleaser, the silent absorber, the endless giver. What remains is your true face. You learn to speak needs without guilt, to say no without apology, to love without self-erasure. This authenticity does not end connection. It deepens it because it is real. Purpose begins to glow here. Empaths are often drawn to healing, teaching, art, or activism. These are not random. They are expressions of your archetype. But now, Instead of being drained by service, you are fueled by alignment. You no longer serve to earn love. You serve because your gift, balanced by boundaries, overflows naturally, and this purpose connects you to society. The empath in individuation becomes a change agent, not by absorbing the world's pain, but by mirroring its possibilities. You inspire not through collapse, but through steadiness. Your presence becomes lighthouse. Your story becomes medicine. Your resilience becomes hope. As we bring this section to a close, remember, individuation is not perfection. It is wholeness. It is learning to live as both sensitive and strong, both connected and sovereign. Your empathy is not erased. It is recalibrated, transmuted into a compass that points you toward your greater purpose. In our final movement, we'll land this story with quiet sovereignty. We will reverse the opening image, from lantern carried for others to mirror held for yourself. There, we'll end not with exhaustion, but with affirmation, with 3 short lines of truth and a single act of boundary setting to carry into your life today. You entered this journey carrying a lantern for other people's nights. You were praised for your glow, for the way you lit their paths even as your own body burned down to wax and smoke. But now, at the end of this long descent and ascent, the lantern has shifted. You no longer hold it out for the crowd. You turn it inward, and it becomes a mirror. It reflects not their storms, but your own morning light. This reversal is the essence of sovereignty. Sovereignty does not mean cutting off love or turning stone-hearted. It means standing in your own center, rooted like a tree whose branches still offer shade, but whose trunk no longer sways with every passing breeze. You are not here to dissolve into the moods of others. You are here to carry your own essence with clarity, to let empathy be a channel, not a sponge, not a drain. Think of all the stages you've walked, the merging mistaken for listening, the archetype of healer twisted into martyrdom, the shadow absorption that left you heavy, the dreams that revealed the cost, the sacred boundaries that began to shield your flame, the alchemy that transmuted pain into wisdom, and the individuation that stitched all of it into a whole. Each was a crucible, a chapter in the myth of your becoming, and each has brought you here, to the simple, profound truth that your sensitivity is not a curse but a calling, provided you learn to wield it with discernment. You don't need to bleed to prove your care. You don't need to drown to prove your love. You don't need to vanish to prove your worth. Compassion is not measured in depletion. It is measured in presence, in authenticity, in the courage to remain yourself even as you walk beside others in their storms. Here is your invitation. In the next 24 hours, choose one boundary and honor it. Let it be small. Leave a gathering when your body feels tired. Pause before answering a message that drains you, or say no to a request that doesn't align. That one act is not selfish. It is sacred. It is the beginning of rewriting your myth. And when guilt whispers, remember this. Your healed boundary is not a wall. It is a lighthouse. You steady yourself so others can see what steadiness looks like. You model a compassion that does not erase the self. You show that love can be both tender and strong, both open and contained. So let us land here quietly with 3 truths. I exist. I matter. I begin here. Carry these words as your philosopher's stone, as your grounding root, as your tide turned. You leave not as a drained lantern, but as a mirror reflecting your own sovereign light. And in that reflection, others will see not their rescuer, but their own possibility of wholeness.